There's a huge question mark over Galway United now. Of course, manager Jeff Kenna, who kept us up in the Premier this season, with unfortunately no thanks to Tony Cousins.
Absolutely.
But there's a big question mark, will he stay? And certainly goalkeeper Gary Rogers has really stirred things now when on Thursday he announced that he's looking to move because he wants to stay full-time within the profession.
Well, I can understand the situation. I mean, Gary isn't the only one. Obviously John Lester and John Fitzgerald are similar. The situation...
Were they right, though, to come out and say that before the manager actually came out and made his decision public?
Well, I mean, obviously they wanted the players to remain, but Galway United have to make decisions of their own standing, and they've decided they're going to operate on a part-time basis next year. But I think it's almost, well, maybe a quarter to a third or whatever of their budget of last season. So it's going to be much change. Now, the situation with most clubs in the Aircom League is that I would doubt if any of them can continue on the budget that they have. Now, St. Pat's we'll call it a sugar daddy who sort of just writes the checks to cover everything off. Drogheda did have that. There's a lot of people putting money in. That has gone because people just can't afford to do it. Bohemians are depending on sale of Dalymount Park or a certain part of it for their funds. So there's going to be huge changes. Those three players have, indicated that they want to continue playing full-time football, which is fine. They're a free contract. That is their choice. But I think a lot of clubs next season are not going to be full-time. So there is not going to be as many full-time playing roles as there had been in the past. We did a piece with Niall O'Reilly last Friday week after the game up in Belfield, and Niall spoke. I asked him the question about the future, and he spoke in depth about going part-time, but the players sort of training, but also having part-time jobs, so they would have the best of both worlds. So, some of the players will find other positions in other clubs. Whether it remains to be seen whether there's going to be as much full-time football as these people realise, and obviously we're going to have to wait and see. Now, you mentioned, Jeff Kenna.
Yeah.
Jeff, I was just thinking of the similarities with with Sean's interview with John McIntyre just a few moments ago. I mean, obviously John is coming in with Galway hurling at a pretty low ebb, and hopefully he will pick them up. Tony Cousins was a similar situation. 1 point after 7 games when he started, things were absolutely dreadful, and he lifted them, and through his manner and his commitment and his passion and his management skills, which are only new, of course. He saved Galway United. So whether Jeff is going to stay, well, I mean, that's the $40,000 question. I do know that he's actually gone away on holidays since Friday for 10 days.
Yeah.
He did have a 2.5-year contract, but I'm led to believe that it was an open contract at the end of this season. If he saved Galway United, the options were open at both ends. Of maybe whether he could break it without a clause, or whether Galway United.
Was that a lack of confidence there in the board of directors?
Oh no, not at all. But I mean, I think it probably was a sensible situation. I mean, let's put it this way: Galway United were at the bottom of the league, going nowhere when he came in. Right? They took in a manager on a 2.5-year contract. Okay, and Galway United went down to the first division, and I don't know what salary Jeff was on. Right?
Yeah.
If we went down and we were laboured with a manager with a huge salary, well then if we made good management decision on behalf of the board to, okay, you have a 2.5-year contract, but it will be reviewed on both sides at the end of the season, so that if Jeff Kenna wanted to walk away, well, he could. Okay, that would be our loss, but at least Galway United aren't laboured with somebody, with a huge cost for them for the rest of their time. But as I said, thankfully they've survived in the Premier League.
Absolutely.
I know that talking to players and other people involved, they would be delighted if Jeff Kenna would stay. And I mean, obviously he had a good relationship with the players, and his assistant Ian Foster, and I know Stephen Lally and Billy Cleary, other players involved in the background there, Adrian Cronin. So I mean, a good team was built up, but there's no question.
Well, it's very hard for a full-time manager to have a part-time club.
Well, I mean, maybe there could be a situation that the players, still train maybe in the morning, like they do currently.
Yeah, we're only going back a couple of years, Mike, when Galway United was a part-time club anyways.
Oh, absolutely, yes, of course. And I mean, Galway United, I must remember, at a part-time level, when we go back to the days of Jumbo and Donny Farrer and John Mannion, and I think they were managed by Tony Mannion at the time, we finished second in the league. Indeed, our own Derek Rogers was very much involved in that. But I mean, that was the way the league was that time. That was part-time football. But football my opinion, is going to very much go drift back to a part-time situation, because the affordability factor just isn't there. Now, maybe if Galway United started the league better in the season just gone by, and we were getting crowds of, say, 2,500, maybe to 3,000 on the odd occasion, matters might be a little bit different, and that change might never have occurred. But when we started poorly, and the loss, and the crowd stumbled, eventually ended up down at 1,100-1,200. I mean, Galway United, we'll say, don't know how lucky they were that there was 12, 15, maybe 1,800 people still going to Galway United games in the midst of the season, and Galway United were well marooned at the bottom of the table. And that, in fairness, gives us is loyalty from the supporters. I mean, if you can look at our friends across the channel, where teams are at the lower divisions and where there might be a much stronger soccer tradition, an awful lot less people would go. So, I mean, the crowds that supported Galway United this year, they have to be thanked for supporting a team that was at the bottom. Okay, the last game against Finn Harps wasn't at home. I think there was 2,500 or 2,800 were at that game.
Yes.
I mean, that was a fantastic crowd on the night that was in it. So the crowd certainly have supported Galway United. Obviously, major decisions have to be made along the way. And
when can we expect these major decisions to be announced?
Well, I mean, obviously, Jeff Kenna is away for the moment, so I assume until he comes back, until decisions are made on his behalf, nothing is going to happen.
He hasn't been sending you any text messages?
No, haven't. I don't think. I'm not sure how the line from the Maldives is, but I think Jeff wants to get away from everybody. In fairness, he's been fantastic all season, very, very cooperative. So I'm sure he'll definitely want to see the back of us along the way. So I'm sure until he comes back and decisions are made regarding management, well, then there's not going to be many players signed. Now, I'm led to believe, right, that some of the local players, remember the younger local players, have indicated that they are willing to resign, but I do know of many more who are offered literally considerably less than they were on last season, and these guys are leaving their options open.
Okay.
Of course, O'Shea, as we know, has gone over to Derby County, and the likelihood is that he will sign there. The only other player that's actually signed for next season is Gary Rogers. So if Gary, but I mean, it might be seen that we might be still playing. He might be still with Galway United next year, despite what he said earlier on, because he might not get too much full-time football at another club.
Yeah, well, this is it. Things are changing. Mike Rafferty, thanks a million for joining us.
Welcome, Gary.